Hi, Roy here from Chile, Central Florida, and welcome to another edition of The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Garten, and I have got a huge packed show today with so much stuff going on this past week from the Trump administration and from Minnesota and other places, Georgia. So let's just go ahead and get right into this show, folks, because, man, it is loaded. And we are going to start right off with the Epstein files. Todd Blanche, the deputy attorney, U.S. attorney, has just released the final batch of the Epstein files, millions of pages, according to him, that they had in to go through. So, and of course, there's always a little bit of titillating information in those files, and I will highlight some of those. So the Justice Department, as you're well aware, have released more than 3 million pages of those files related to the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Todd Blanche says there was really nothing new in those documents, and of course you, the public, can be the judge if you want to download them and go through them. The documents contain references to President Donald Trump and other powerful figures, including Elon Musk. Once again, we must reiterate that Donald Trump has never, ever been charged of any wrongdoing in the Epstein files. So even though his name may be mentioned, and it is mentioned quite a bit, the president has never been charged with any wrongdoing, or so you've got to keep that in mind. However, some of the other figures that were in those files include Elon Musk, Bill Clinton, and a former Obama White House counsel person, and the FBI list of allegations related to Trump, many of which appear to have come from unverified tips. Another thing we must be, careful to say as we talk about these files, unverified tips, of course, are among the new documents. Now, Trump, of course, has always denied wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. Again, he's never been charged with anything. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has said the department has now completed its review of the Epstein files, and the White House has no longer no oversight over the process. And he did say, I thought, said not to involve Donald was one of the quotes in that document. A newly released email chain shows Jeffrey Epstein and someone who appears to have been Maxwell strategizing in 2011 about how to deal with new allegations from a woman who claimed she had worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Epstein's first emails, a former executive with Trump's resort empire named Nicholas Rebus, about the girl in the new papers who had claimed to have worked at Mar-a-Lago in 1998 at the age of 15, when Epstein thought it was in 2000 when she was 17. Who would I go to verify? And I don't know how Donald Trump would respond to that, Epstein wrote. So, again, this is one instance where Trump's name comes up. Epstein forwards the message to G. Max, who, of course, is Maxwell, who responds, I thought you said not to involve Donald. While the name of the accuser is redacted, the details match the account of Virginia Giuffre, whom Trump said last year he was aware Epstein had recruited from Mar-a-Lago. Now, Giuffre also made her allegations public around the time of these emails in 2011. One of the big subplots involving Trump is what he knew and when and why about Epstein was recruiting the likes of Giuffre. Trump has never been accused, as I keep having to say, by law enforcement of any wrongdoing related to Epstein's crime, and he, of course, has denied any wrongdoing. So you got to keep in mind about these documents. Two things to keep in mind. Number one, there are a lot of unverified sources. Conspiracy theorists, of course, will look into those and dissect and try to come up with something that, like, aha, there's a gotcha moment in these files. So far, there hasn't been any thing that has shown that Trump has committed any crimes, and so you just got to read these documents at face value, as I personally have gone through them, and judge as you may. And of course, the files also include details of a 1994 rape allegation against Trump from a Jane Doe who dropped previous lawsuits. The Justice Department's newly released files related to Jeffrey Epstein on Friday include an FBI form which details a complaint from a woman who accused Donald Trump of raping her when she was 13 years old. This anonymous accuser previously launched lawsuits against Donald Trump and dropped them, the last one right before the 2016 elections. The FBI documents details multiple instances of an alleged abuse of Jane Doe by Trump, including that, as I mentioned, rape. It also said that Epstein was allegedly angry that Trump was wanting to take Doe's virginity and also raped Doe. These descriptions mirror the allegations that Jane Doe made in her 2016 lawsuit. Trump had previously denied the woman's allegations, and the Justice Department has said of the documents, this production may include fake or falsely submitted images, documents, or videos, as everything that was sent to the FBI by the public was included in the production that is responsive to the act. Now, Jane Doe was expected to appear at a news conference in Los Angeles in November of 2016, but the event was quickly and abruptly canceled. Her lawyer at the time, Lisa Bloom, said her client was too afraid to show up. So again, these are unverified sources. We all remember when that, at least I do, when that news conference was supposed to happen in that year. And of course, she said she was too afraid to show up. If that is the case, or she knew she was lying out of her teeth and just kind of panicked and said, no, I can't do this. So we don't know. Now, the other thing that was in some of these documents, now this is kind of interesting, and this so far has been proven to be true, and that is Elon Musk, and we all know how strange this guy is, exchanged multiple emails with Jeffrey Epstein to coordinate trips to one of the Epstein's Caribbean islands. According to documents released by the Justice Department, Musk had previously claimed that he rebuffed attempts from Epstein to get him to visit one of those two islands Epstein owned. But communications between the pair released Friday revealed that Musk tried in 2012 and 2013 to coordinate trips. At one point, asking Epstein which day or night on the island would be the wildest party. Yeah, let's go ahead and have a wild party. It is not clear from the emails whether Musk ultimately visited. Now, on November 24th, 2012, Epstein emailed Musk, how many people will you be having for the helicopter or heli to the island? Musk responded the next day that it would probably be just him and his then wife. What day or night would be the wildest party on our island? Musk added. Now, on December 13th, 2013, Musk emailed Epstein, will be in the area, over Bart's area, over on the holidays. Is there a good time to visit? Epstein responded 2 days later and said the beginning of the new year would be a great time, adding, only space for you there, buddy. Now, on Christmas Day, Epstein said in another email that 2 or 3 would be perfect. I will come and get you. Musk first responded that he would need to fly back to Los Angeles on the night of January 2nd before saying he would push his departure back a day. When should we head to your island on the 2nd? Musk asked Epstein. Representatives from Musk, of course, did not immediately respond to a request for comment about those new emails. The emails do show a level of communication between the pair that had not previously been ever revealed. Now, again, that is something that you need to look at. As you know, Elon Musk and Donald Trump have had a on-again, off-again relationship. And, of course, with Musk, creating these wonderful task force, Doge task force. So right now we don't know how that relationship between Musk and Trump is right now. They kind of go back and forth. When Elon Musk gets mad at Trump, he keeps saying he's going to expose, some of the stuff in the Epstein files, and because he has things he knows that other people don't know. So again, take it with a grain of salt. Another part of the files show former Obama White House counsel asked for Epstein's thoughts on a statement declining Attorney General job in October 2014. This goes to Kathy Rumler as White House counsel to Barack Obama. Now, she sent Jeffrey Epstein a draft public statement declining further consideration for the position of U.S. Attorney General. She was just simply writing draft statement thoughts. Now, Rumler's statement had some typos and included. And she says, I've always considered the Department of Justice my professional home, and while I'm deeply honored to be considered a candidate for the Attorney General's position, I have informed the President that I must decline his further consideration. because the Attorney General serves a unique role in the president's cabinet and must be perceived as independent from the White House. And, of course, she goes on again to ask Epstein what he thinks about all that. Now, she presently serves as a lawyer at Goldman Sachs. Now, what is interesting about this, and excuse me, a little bit of a hoarse throat here on these cold days here in Florida, is the fact that she really had an obsession, or kind of thinks that this guy is just wonderful. Epstein also gave her a paid for a flight for her too at one time. Again, these are just email communications. There is no fact or any proof, again, that she had any other relationship other than a professional attachment to Epstein. All right, that's all there is. They could have been friends, and that's as far as I went. You can't read between the lines on a lot of this stuff, so you got to be careful. All right, that's all I'm saying. And we've seen witness interviews mentioned to President Donald Trump and his former aide Steve Bannon. Investigations have shown that Epstein, of course, he was involved with underage girls, and there was a lot of stuff going on there. There's also several email exchanges featured in the documents with Howard Lutnick. Now, an email shows that the current U.S. Secretary of Commerce and former CEO of financial firm Cantor Fitzgerald invited Epstein in November 2015 to a Democratic fundraiser for Hillary Clinton that Lutnick hosted. It's unclear whether Epstein ever attended those. Okay, there's nothing showing that he ever was there. So you've got, again, look between the lines. There's more stuff in there, obviously. I can't go in, nor do I have the time to go through all of those documents, but those are some of the highlights. You can take them for what it's worth, for a grain of salt, kind of see what's going on there. So, take the time to download those files if you wish to do so, and kind of see what's going on there. All right. So, again, Todd Blanche, who, released all of those files, took some questions from the press. And, of course, he kind of just, blew them off and said, hey, here's the files. Do what you want with them. I can't do any more with them. There's no proof or anything else that what has been happening there. He took some questions, of course, about what was going on, when I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, with the Don Lemon arrest. And again, he said that's up to Pam Bondi. And that brings me to another little statement here. Why was Todd Blanche brought in to talk about the release of the Epstein files? Where was Pam Bondi? Well, she made a video, which I'll again show you a little bit, and a post about the arrest of Lemon and another journalist, but Mrs. Fort, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, where was Pam Bondi? Trump kind of went, no, let Todd handle this press conference. So kind of interesting there about what was going on with her. Some other brief headline news here that you saw on the crawl about the government spending package to keep the United States open. We're kind of working on that. Now, the Senate, of course, had passed their version late last night of the spending package. It finally got approved. But now it's got to go to the House. And, of course, the House cannot look at it till Monday because that's when they convene. So over the weekend, there probably might be a small government shutdown of services that are considered non-essential until the House gets a chance to look at the package. Now, whether or not the House is going to, try to come up with an alternative for their package. But the main sticking point, of course, about all of this was the funding for Homeland Security, which we'll get into here in a little bit because of all of the sad things that have been going on. So we will have to, see what the House is going to do, whether or not they'll, go ahead and along with the Senate package and go quickly approve it and get the funding approved, or whether they're going to argue and bitch and complain and try to come up with another alternative. And that, of course, will just stalemate and stall everything, and then we're going to get closer to a government shutdown. Some other breaking news that have been going on, of course, is the senator from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar. Okay, now Amy has thrown her hat in the ring to run for governor as a Democrat for the state of Minnesota. She has officially launched her campaign for governor, and is widely expected move that comes after the Democratic, of course, Governor Tim Walz has said he's not going to run again because of some of the stuff that was going on in the state of Minnesota with some fraud, and there were complaints that he didn't do enough to have oversight on that, so he's not going to run for a third term. And so you've got Amy throwing her hat in the ring. Now, what is interesting about that is, of course, if she runs and wins, there's going to be an open Senate seat. Somebody's got to fill that. And there'll be several people, I'm sure, they're going to throw their hat in the ring to take over Amy's seat as state senator. Amy is extremely popular in the state of Minnesota, and with her running for governor, she probably stands a really good chance of winning that seat. But of course, that's going to create another open seat for the anybody to take, Republican or Democrat. And of course, the Democrats already are, about 3 seats behind in the Senate to have control of the Senate. So, you're going to have to find somebody that's willing to step up to the plate and fill Amy's Senate seat, if in fact she does win. And, the odds are pretty much in her favor. I mean, anything can happen, but you got to, see what's going to, take a look about what's going to go on there. Now, some other things that have been breaking in the news, of course, is with the Fulton County elections, and from clear back when Trump ran for his first term. Now, the FBI, of course, sent Kash Patel down there, and also Tulsi Gabbard. Why she was there, we have no idea, but why she was present. But, of course, the FBI, of course, was seeking records related to the 2020 election. And they did went through everything. The FBI's search of the Fulton County election office kind of sent shockwaves through election offices nationwide, because if this is going to happen in Fulton County, of course, Trump is still on his revenge tour. What about other election offices? It's no secret Donald Trump wants, as he's trying to control everything else, including state media control and, immigration, he wants control of the elections too, so he can always keep whoever he wants in as Republican candidates. And he goes on the face value that we want fair and, elections. And how many times did the Georgia elections ballots get counted and recounted and recertified and recertified? Over 4 times. And each time when it's gone to court, the judges have said there's nothing here. It's done and over with. Trump, you lost. But he wouldn't accept that. So now he's on a revenge tour, and he's going to, if he winds up doing anything with the election ballots in Georgia and the machines there, who's to say he won't go across station line? And every time the Democrats have a lead or are winning somewhere, he's going to bitch and complain and say there has to be fraud because the Republicans, they got to win. We win every time. There's something wrong here. If the Republicans aren't winning, there's fraud. So anyway, so you can see why it sent shockwaves, all right? Because they have spent years, responding to lawsuits, audits, investigations driven by President Donald Trump there in Georgia, and of course the false claims that the 2020 elections was stolen. But what is ironic about all this is there was a national conference going on in Georgia for election officials, right as the time of the FBI's raided the offices. And another ironic thing is some of the speakers that were scheduled to talk at this conference include, yes, Tulsi Gabbard and Pam Bondi. Anyway, so, this kind of let them lost a little bit of confidence, and they're like, what the hell is going on here? And because all election officials follow state and state laws, and the federal government should never, ever, ever get involved in state elections. That's why we have the United States and why we, the citizens of the United States, elect our officials, whether they be Republican or a Democrat. The government, federal government is supposed to stay out of state elections, but not Donald Trump. Okay, because we win. We have to win every time, and we will win every time. That's his attitude. Now, as I said, there was a national conference going on. So Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguirre, a Democrat, said election officials are very concerned and upset and believe a certain individual, referring to Donald Trump, is trying to intimidate us ahead of the 2026 and 2028 elections. At the same time, he said, officials want voters to know they are running safe, secure, and accessible elections with safeguards that are continually reviewed and improved. Utah Lieutenant Governor DeRay Henderson, a Republican and the state's chief of elections officer, said the only response to heightened scrutiny is strict adherence to the law. We're committed to orderly and fair elections no matter what political party the voter belongs to, she said. But we live in a reality where politicians politicize stuff. Again, all of this stuff going on in Fulton County, they called it kind of a wake-up call for election officials. The FBI executed a broad search warrant at a Fulton County elections office. And when I say broad, they mean they were not only taking election ballots, they were taking the machines as well. Federal judge authorized agents to search for ballots, tabulator records, ballot images, and voter rolls, citing potential violations of federal election law. Again, this thing has been cussed and discussed and gone over and over and over, and no fraud was ever found. But again, Donald Trump refuses to believe that. And he says the elections was rigged, and I'm going to find somebody and anybody that rigged this, and they're going to be prosecuted. I'll just stick Pam Bondi on them too. So there you go. We've got a lot of news about Donald Trump, so let's go ahead and kind of centralize and summarize some of the things going on with Mr. Donald Trump, our current president, and some things that are going on right now. Of course, he's been calling for a change at the U.S. Central Bank now with Jerome Powell's term as Federal Reserve Chairman poised to end in May. In a few months, he could be about to get his wish. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced Kevin Warsh, a conservative whom he had passed over for the post to his regret during his first term, as his choice to replace Jerome Powell. Warsh is a central casting, and he will never let you down, Trump declared on social media. He announced the decision about this guy. He said the irony of the choice was lost on no one. Warsh has made his name as a supporter of higher interest rates, a reputation he has tried to shed in recent opinion articles recently, and also in media appearances. It's a position that would seem to put him at odds with Donald Trump if he does, in fact, support that. A self-described low-interest rate guy who has criticized Powell for not cutting interest rates quickly enough and who has made no secret that his choice to lead the Fed should be on board with his views. It remains to be seen whether Warsh's selection will lead to the bank that Trump wants. Now, why this guy? As you're well aware of, and unless you're living in a rock or in a cave, you got to be figuring this out by now, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump's current cabinet makeup and appointees, and those who are not on the cabinet, including all the judges, is there for one reason: to work at Trump's beck and call. They're not there for the American people. They are there for the president. And they're only for what he says. You've got all these people that when Donald Trump says jump, they're all supposed to say, how high, Mr. President? That's it. Even with some of the Republicans that are made up in the Senate and in the Congress. There are Republicans now that are starting to stray away a little bit and starting to say enough is enough because they didn't realize it was going to get this extreme. But you still have those in there, the MAGA base and his appointees, that, whatever Trump says, they will do. And that even goes to stuff that may even be shady or somewhat illegal. What they want with this guy and the feds is when Donald Trump and his family want to go build something and they need lower interest rates, he just wants to pick up the phone and tell this guy, you need to lower the interest rates. I can't. I got to get 5 points below prime. My family's building a beautiful hotel in the Gaza Strip, and we need favorable interest rates. So that's really what he wants. I mean, you just read between the lines. And the economy just doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you just can't say I want lower interest rates and lower them just because you want something, and because you got to have checks and balances. The prime and the interest rate is there for a reason, to avoid inflation, to avoid a collapse in the economy. But Trump doesn't see it that way. It's what he wants, So. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. It doesn't. If you can't see that, that's because that's all he talks about is lower interest rates, and it's because this guy is an entrepreneur and builds stuff and invests in stuff, and he doesn't want to pay. He doesn't want to pay high interest rates. He wants to borrow money at 0%. If he could get away with it, that's exactly what he would do. He would borrow money at 0%, and of course, with all his track record on bankruptcies, he doesn't like to pay anything back. I got what I want, so the hell with you. Another thing, and this is also scary, President Donald Trump is suing the United States Internal Revenue Service and Treasury Department for at least $10 billion, accusing the agency of unauthorized leak of his tax returns during his first administration. Although anybody that's running for the office of president, their tax records are supposed to be available to the general public. And as you remember, he kept stalling and saying, well, they're not quite ready for release yet. My people are still looking over my tax records. They're not finalized yet. And so, when he filed the suit this past Thursday in federal court in Florida, again, why in Florida? Because he's got his judges down there who kiss his hind end and do whatever he wants to do. Now, Trump, who filed the suit alongside his sons Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, is suing the IRS and Treasury personally, not in his official capacity as president. You get that little loophole there, personally, not in his official capacity as president. The lawsuit alleged that the government failed to protect Trump and the Trump Organization's confidential tax information, which was leaked by the press by Charles Littlejohn, who was a former Internal Revenue Service contractor. Littlejohn, who worked as a government contractor at Booz Allen Hamilton, illegally obtained and disclosed Trump's tax returns to publications like the New York Times and ProPublica, the suit alleged. In 2024. Now, Littlejohn was sentenced to 5 years in prison for disclosing thousands of tax returns without authorization from Trump and thousands of other wealthy individuals. Trump's legal team alleged that the IRS is legally responsible for Littlejohn's actions because he had staff-like access to tax returns and confidential tax return information and exploited long-standing security failures that the Internal Revenue Service had been warned about but had gone uncorrected. The IRS wrongfully allowed a rogue, politically motivated employee to leak private and confidential information about President Trump, his family, and the Trump's organization to the New York Times, ProPublica, and other left-wing news outlets. Left-wing. I didn't know the New York Times was left-wing. Which was then illegally released to millions of people. That's another thing with the president. If you're not in his favor, if you're not talking about the MAGA base and Republicans, then you can't be anything else but a left-wing lunatic. Think our way or go to hell. That's really what it boils down to. Now, President Trump continues to hold those who wrong America and Americans accountable. Trump's legal team said in a statement earlier this week that the Treasury Department cuts ties with Booz Allen Hamilton, Littlejohn's former employer, saying it would cancel a $21 million in federal contracts. A statement from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, at the time referenced Littlejohn as a reason for the decision, saying Booz Allen failed to implement inadequate safeguards to protect sensitive data, including the confidential taxpayer information it had access to through its contracts with the Internal Revenue Service. So, as I get, and to reiterate, Trump during his first term refused to release his tax records, but the other presidential candidates did. It's because that's what the norm is, but he kept stalling and didn't want anybody to see it, because they haven't doctored it enough to see if he's losing money or, as you're well aware of, he only paid $750 in income tax. Yes, that is right. He only paid $750 in income tax, and all of his other tax returns, he paid zero. All right. This is the guy that knows how to skim and work the system. All the billions of dollars this guy has. That's why, big corporations who are billionaires like him, because, they have all these favored tax returns. But us people that's in middle America, we have to pay taxes out the yazoo. But this guy, he has paid zero or only $750. Is that fair? Do you think people have all this frickin' money? Is that fair that they are able to get away with that? But the rest of us, we'll frickin' go to jail or have our wages garnished if we don't pay our income tax. But these guys, that's okay. So it's, again, here's the bottom line. When you're suing the Internal Revenue Service or you're suing the Department of Treasury, and let's say they got to pay that $10 billion in fines or whatever, when this thing goes to court, we, the American people, put our tax dollars into the Internal Revenue Service and into the Department of Treasury, who they in turn, of course, issue those income tax refund. Let's say he sues them for $10 billion. Where the hell are they getting this money from to pay these fines? When it comes down to the trickle effect, who is Trump really suing? He is suing us, the American people, for his, ego. Because we're the ones that put the money into the IRS. We are the ones that put the money in the Department of Treasury. So this is, again, with the Fulton County deal, and now with this guy is on a revenge tour. There is something mentally wrong here, folks, with this guy. I never seen a human being in my entire life that is just got this anger built up in them and this "you done me wrong" thing. What human being on this planet works like that? That has, you can't say forgive and forget. They just carry this hatred and this anger and this selfishness in their minds, and it's I don't know. But this is what we're getting to. Now, whether this lawsuit can even be done, we don't know yet. Congress, or whether the Constitution allows for anything like this, we have to check. But, Trump has skirted the Constitution now since he's been in office, so we'll have to wait and see. He always finds ways around the Constitution. The Constitution in the United States means zero to him. He wants to call it the Trump Constitution is really what he wants. Now, Trump had a cabinet meeting, as you're well aware of, for about an hour and 20 minutes this past week without inviting officials who have faced backlash or scrutiny in recent days to give remarks, including visibly absent from that cabinet meeting was Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and Labor Secretary Laura Chavez DeMarimer. He also didn't call on Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The president didn't take questions from the press neither. Okay, so why do you suppose that is? Because some of those people are kind of in hot water and have been saying things that Trump didn't approve for them to say. Again, his cabinet people are robots. They only are supposed to say and do things that he orders them to do. You do anything else, you're on my crap list. So that's probably why they weren't there. You have seen this too, even on the red carpet. His wife had this premiere of her documentary. Do you remember that? You've probably seen that. And of course, the Hollywood media was there to talk to her about her new movie. Guess who did all the talking, though? Donald Trump. She'd go, and he would just cut her right off and say, well, yeah, it's a great movie. Billions of dollars spent on the movie. The best movies ever made. Yeah, Amazon did great. And Amazon paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to get the rights for his wife's documentary, which, as you're well aware of, isn't doing that great at the theaters. But again, I would be embarrassed. She again is just kind of like she was just there, and she wasn't allowed to say two words, and he had to, again, what kind of guy is this? I just it's unfrickin' believable that you see this kind of stuff, and I don't know. It's very, very sad that you have to. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So, former CNS journalist Don Lemon. Let's talk about this now. Georgia Fort and 3 others have been arrested in connection with an incident which anti-IS protesters disrupted at a service at a Minnesota church, according to officials. Now, Lemon and Fort were released later in the day on their own recognizance without bail. The charges state that, along with other journalists, he conspired to create an illegal protest to harass a house of worship. And, of course, the incident unfolded on January 18th when protesters entered City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. The protester said one of the pastors is the acting field director of the St. Paul ICE field office, and protesters were heard chanting justice for Renee Good inside the church. And Attorney General Pam Bondi said on social media that Lemon, Minnesota-based journalist Georgia Fort, and 2 others were arrested early Friday. And she said, at my direction, keywords there, at my direction. So Sarah, hey, Pam Bondi was allowed to at least say something. She said, at my direction, at least 3 other additional people were previously arrested in connection with the protest. So as you kind of see this clip going in here, and by the way, here's a brief clip of what Pam Bondi said.
If I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
We do not tolerate attacks on places of worship. Now, as you could see from it was because the document finally got sealed on the arrest warrant. She's basically saying that Lemon and Georgia Fort, among 2 others, actually coordinated this protest and told them to go into the church and disrupt the worship. Okay, which is Lemon has said that's not true. Now, he was there at the protest as an independent journalist, okay? Lemon posted the video on his Instagram on 18th showing protesters yelling, as well as his interviews with churchgoers and protesters. As this is running in the background, Lemon said in the video, we are not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. Okay, that's there, very clear. And Lemon's attorney, Abby Lull, said on Friday that Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents while he was covering the Grammy Awards. Lowell called Lemon's arrest an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and said the journalist will fight these charges in court. Minnesota Chief U.S. District Judge Patrick Schlitz also wrote to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals last week that Lemon and his producer were not protesters at all, and he refused to even hear the argument, and that there was no evidence that those engaged in any criminal behavior or conspiracy to do so. So, did you catch that? He said that there was really nothing there for them. Now, as we all are aware of late yesterday, even though Fort and Lemon were arrested, they have been released on their own reconnaissance, and we don't even know if this thing will go to trial. Pam Bondi got to rush a grand jury and to put this stuff all together because the other judges wouldn't hear it or do anything to get them arrested because they are journalists. Well, she got together a grand jury. And, of course, as you know, with a grand jury, the defense is never there. It's the prosecutors who put together the grand jury and present their evidence. And all the grand jury's got to go on is whatever the prosecutors throw in front of them, whether it's factual, made up, or whatever. So they must have had something that the way they said, oh, yeah, there must have been a criminal act here. So, wow, we've got our orders to get these 2 arrested. Donald Trump doesn't like Lemon. All right. As for, Fort, we don't, with Georgia Fort, we don't know what's going on. I got something to show you there real quick, too, here in just a minute. So, again, that's what this all happened, why it went down, is because of a grand jury said, okay, there is something there. You can go ahead and get your warrant. So now moving on to Georgia Fort. She's an Emmy Award-winning news producer, Minnesota-based journalist, and she's very widely respected as a black journalist. Okay, she was also arrested, as I just mentioned, in Minnesota, reporting for the same protest. Now, this brave journalist went live when she heard the FBI agents at her door, and she went live recording exactly what was about to go down. Watch this clip.
You guys, I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. They're saying that they were able to go before a grand jury sometime, I guess, in the last 24 hours, and that they have a warrant for my arrest. I've talked to my attorney, and I'm being advised to go with them, I guess, down to Whipple. And my children are here. They're impacted by this. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. We are supposed to have our constitutional right of the freedom to film, to be a member of the press. I don't feel like I have my First Amendment right as a member of the press. Because now federal agents are at my door arresting me for filming the church protest a few weeks ago. Again, I don't have a long time here, you guys, but I wanted you to know, for me, agents are at my door right now. My attorney has spoken with them. I did send a relative outside to talk to them. They're showing some type of documentation, apparently, that they got an indictment from a grand jury. I knew that I was on a defendant's list. I did not publish it because it was under seal. And so we've done everything that we can to try and abide by, the advice of our attorneys. But right now, you guys, I wanted you to know I'm going to have to hop off here and surrender to agents as a member of the press. I filmed the church protest a few weeks ago, and now I'm being arrested for that. It's hard to understand how we have a constitution, constitutional rights, when you can just be arrested for being a member of the press. We've seen all these violations. All right, you guys, I got to go. They're knocking.
Yep, she's coming right now.
Give me 1 second.
Now, the arrest of journalists for going into a church in the course of reporting is shocking enough, but what's even more alarming, and that is no secret, that Don Lemon, of course, is a Trump critic. And again, I'm not condoning protesters going into a church, all right? But when you go into a house of worship, which is private property, whether the protesters are right or wrong, that's to be seen. I'm sure we wouldn't like, if you're sitting in church, have protesters come in. I'm not condoning that. But what is the fact here is Lemon and Fort are journalists. And I was a journalist. I'm still a contract journalist for some things. Okay, I'll be transparent about that. And I was a news journalist for many years in my career in broadcast journalism for television. We are protected by the First Amendment to cover events and bring you, the people, the news. Just like with this podcast, I'm doing this as a journalist. I am protected by the First Amendment to give my opinion and my commentary as I see fit. Whether you don't like it or do like it, that's up to you. But as a journalist, we have the constitutional right to cover the news, and we have the constitutional right as a commentator to present our views, okay? That's what news is, and being in journalism is giving you, the folks, how we interpret the news and whatever. And Lemon and Fort were doing just that. They didn't tell the protesters and gather all these people together and pay them and say, hey, let's go into this church for news coverage, and we'll cover you, okay? They saw what was going on, and they decided to tag along, and that's what journalists do, all right? So there you go. Now, President Trump said Tuesday that Alex Preddy, let's get back into that now, too. This is another freaking thing that's just, I don't know. It's going way off the wall here. God bless this man. So anyway, President Trump said Tuesday that Alex Peretti, who was fatally shot by a Border Patrol agent on Saturday, should have not carried a firearm on him. You can't have guns. You can't walk into a protest with guns. The president went on to call the incident very unfortunate. Now, Peretti, who was a 37-year-old U.S. citizen, was shot and killed Saturday in Minneapolis. And a video of the incident shows Peretti recording Border Patrol agents as they conducted an operation. Now, there's a more detailed analysis showing what happened after an agent pushed a woman on the ground. And, of course, Peretti attempted to assist her and was then surrounded by agents and shoved down himself. I want you to watch this video very closely and listen to the commentary. This is probably one of the best videos that have come out about the incidents with Peretti. All right? So go ahead and watch this, and I'll be right back.
Federal immigration officers fatally shot a man Saturday in Minneapolis. He was an ICU nurse who worked at a local Veteran Affairs hospital, another controversial killing by U.S. immigration agents, and the second U.S. citizen killed this month. CNN analyzed cell phone footage from multiple angles. Taken together, they appear at odds with the Department of Homeland Security's initial claims about the lead-up to officers firing on Alex Peretti. Around 9 a.m. Central, video captures two people approaching a federal immigration officer in front of an unidentified vehicle. The sound of whistles is blaring in the background. Alex Peretti enters the frame here. He's filming an officer interacting with protesters and waving a car through. 15 seconds later, Peretti yells,
"Do not push them into the traffic!"
In their statement, DHS said that an individual approached officers with, quote, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. This video seems to show officers approaching Peretti instead of the other way around. We'll see later that Peretti does appear to have had a gun in his waistband, but this video shows he didn't have a gun in his hand, only a phone. Video from this white car shows an up-close angle of a federal immigration officer pushing one protester. Then, 3 seconds later, he pushes Peretti, and then as the camera comes into focus, you see the same federal officer push a third protester with the orange backpack. Peretti raises his hand and turns away, just as the officer sprays him with a chemical irritant. You see Peretti and the other protester trying to help the person with the orange backpack. You can see here an officer pulling Peretti off of this person. 3 more officers join, and then 2 more. Peretti is on the ground under them. One officer in a tan beanie can be seen repeatedly striking Peretti's head with a metal can. You can see an officer in a gray jacket walk into the frame. There isn't a gun in his hand. Seconds later, officers shout. The officer removes a gun from Peretti's belt. The officer steps away from the scene carrying a firearm, seen here in his right hand. Then, gunfire. At least 10 shots ring out. We looked back at the scene from different angles and slowed down the footage. This officer, wearing a black beanie, can be seen drawing his firearm and pointing it in Peretti's direction. We can't see his gun when the first shot is fired, but we can see that this officer fired the second shot. In this angle, you see a second officer also had his gun drawn, and here, he's pointing his weapon at Peretti as we hear gunshots, though it isn't clear if he's the one firing.
What the f***? Did they f***ing kill that guy?
Peretti collapses onto the ground as the officers scatter backwards from around him. The same agent in the black beanie from earlier can be seen firing 5 final shots as Peretti lies there, motionless. Nobody approached his body for 24 seconds. When officers do return to Peretti, they appear to begin searching his body. Video shows that about a minute after Peretti collapsed, immigration officers ask for medical support. When CNN asked DHS about the officer removing the gun before the shooting, DHS repeated their earlier statement, quote, "Officers attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted."
One agent appears to retrieve a firearm from Peretti's waist before another fires multiple rounds at him. All right. So you saw that video. You be the judge, all right? Now, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara told reporters that Peretti was a legal gun owner with a permit to carry. State law also in the state of Minnesota allows individuals to carry firearms during protests. Did you hear that? State law allows people to carry firearms into a protest. Now, these people that are currently on the Trump administration whine and bellyache about him carrying a firearm, but remember when Trump and the insurrection of the Capitol, many of those protesters out there had guns on them, many automatic rifles. And of course, the people who scam these people that get into their close inner circle with Trump, they were turning them back. You remember Trump told them, said, "Oh, they're great people. Let them come in. That's okay. So they got a gun. Oh, so what?" That was different, though, wasn't it? Now, people here, they have a weapon. Well, you're interfering with, immigration. So anyway, there you go. So anyway, even DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and FBI Director Kash Patel have pushed back on Peretti's Second Amendment rights and claimed he intended to injure law enforcement. He did not intend to injure law enforcement. Now, before any of you say anything, I'm well aware of the video that's come out 2 weeks before Peretti went into this, where he was at another protest and, he kicked in a light of a immigration enforcement vehicle. And, of course, Trump had to, go on his Truth Social and whine about that. And as I talk, you can see what Trump said about that particular incident, and that's why he changed all of his mind. He went from an unfortunate instance again to being a terrorist and a dirty, no good SOB, and he shouldn't have been there. So, as you saw in the Truth Social. Now, the problem here is all these backlash comments and everything's starting to fire back up again is starting to unfold because, as you're well aware of, Trump just sent this guy into Minneapolis, Tom Homan, to bring down the rhetoric and bring down the tone because of the unfortunate thing to happen to Alex. All right. And, Trump was all gung-ho about all of that and saying we're going to bring back some of the agents when this happened. And then, of course, then that video came out 2 weeks before showing Alex who, kicked in the taillight and stuff. And all of a sudden, he's right now back to being a terrible terrorist, and because he did damage to a federal vehicle. So now he's back to being a terrible guy. Again, 2 weeks ago, and what happened then, that still does not give anybody the right to kill Alex because of kicking a taillight. Yeah, he shouldn't have done it, but is that a reason to pull out a Glock and shoot the guy? I don't think so. So anyway, so they sent him there, and of course he promised to downsize agents and work with the city, and then Trump pulled on Bovino, pulled him out, as you're well aware of, and let's bring this slide up. So here's the three that's going on right now in Minneapolis. So you have Noem, and you have Tom Homan, and then you have Bovino, who is always wearing his military tactic gear every time he had a press conference. So Trump pulls him out and sends in Tom Homan, who is his border czar. And, of course, he tells Kristi Noem, he brings her into the office for a 2-hour meeting and tells her to tone down her rhetoric and behave. And obviously, is this going to work? I don't know. This is what all the Democrats and people in Minnesota and the mayor of Minnesota and the current governor, Tim Walz, have all saying, we'll just have to wait and see. So is anything going to happen from it? Well, with Trump starting back up his rhetoric again just because of that video 2 weeks ago, we don't know. So, and then you've got Kash Patel, this guy, the FBI director. See, this is what I'm talking about. The rhetoric is starting back up again. Now, Kash Patel said that you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to a protest. It's that simple. BS? Yes, you can, as long as it stays holstered. You sure can. All of his cronies brought all of that stuff to the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol when Trump was whining he lost the election. But that was different then, huh? See, this is it. You got what they do, but you can't do. And that was basically a protest, too, all those people being there. So I don't understand the logic about there. They'll whine and bellyache about this stuff, but what happened at the 2020 insurrection with all of his people there and Trump supporters with their weapons, that's different. And of course, a law officer got killed at that too. But he says you don't have the right to break the law and incite violence. Okay, inciting violence, you're right. You don't have the right to physically harm people and incite violence. That part I will give Kash Patel. But you do have the right to bring a weapon if you so desire, especially in the state of Minnesota. All right? We will, of course, always protect your First Amendment speech, and if you peacefully protest, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the similar ones made by other administration officials have garnered pushback from gun right groups. Even the NRA is starting to get involved with this, and they've always been pro-Republican, pro-Trump, and now they're starting to even say, the guy has a right to carry a firearm. And, of course, the FBI director, as you're well aware of, Kash Patel, announced on Monday that he was launching a criminal investigation into group chats used by Minneapolis protesters on the Signal messaging app based on a social media post by the far-right personality Cam Higbee. Patel used the podcast of another right-wing personality, Benny Johnson, to break the news. Higbee had posted on Sunday on X that he had infiltrated a group chat on Signal, the widely used communication app that offers effective encryption. Remember Pete Hegseth and his... Yeah. Anyway, so Higbee's post appeared to show communication between Minneapolis activists and vehicles trying to locate and share the descriptions and license plates of potential ICE vehicles. He argued that the chats have the sole intention of tracking down federal agents and impeding, assaulting, and obstructing them. And the FBI director said he'd go ahead and look into that. All right. Let's dissect that for just a little bit. They are basically coordinating where ICE agents are going to be. Nothing illegal about that. Now, impeding, the whistles and stuff like that. Again, peaceful protesting, as long as they're peaceful protesting, not physically interacting with the agents. Again, that's what protesters do. But, if they're going to impede, where they can't get in and do their job, then that's where you get problems starting. So there's a fine line about what he's saying here. If they're using Signal Chat to coordinate where the agents are going to be, that's one thing. But if there's proof on there that we're going to have to get together and do physical assault on these guys and all that, well, then the FBI director's got a case there. But if they're just using it to communicate, there's nothing wrong with that, all right? So... you got to see what's going on there. And as you're well aware of, Kash Patel, as you know, got involved with going down to the operations center in Atlanta, Georgia, and working on seizing all that information there too. So, Kash Patel, again, he's got his marching orders, as does Pam Bondi, as does everybody else about, Donald Trump is basically pulling their strings and saying, this is what I want you to do next, as he sits there and gets upset about everything that's happened to him in the previous election. He just will not let go. And in other news, of course, Ilhan Omar, who is a Palestinian, and she's also the representative from the state of Minnesota, was attacked at a town hall event in Minneapolis on Tuesday evening. She was speaking about abolishing ICE when a man lunged towards her with a syringe and sprayed the congresswoman with an unknown substance before security tackled him to the ground. And here's a clip about that.
Must resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Oh my God, he sprayed something on her.
I need a napkin to know nothing.
It's not about him, it's about your safety. No, he sprayed something on you. You need to go get checked. Yeah, and it smells terrible. It's really bad.
Officers witnessed the attack and arrested him for third-degree assault, and that is true. The guy was arrested and charged. Hey, something in favor, finally, of one of our congresswomen. And forensic scientists, of course, are evaluating the scene. Omar stated that at a young age that you don't give in to threats, Omar said, because what did she do? God bless her. She continued the town hall meeting, even with that stuff on her, and even though they told her that, perhaps you should leave and let's just shut this down, she said absolutely not. So she continued the meeting and went on. And we still don't know if that stuff was what was in it. We haven't had any more news information whether it was what that substance was. But you know what? Good for her. Good for her that she continued on and decided to, move on. So I like people like that are gutsy. They can go about and do what they need to do. So let's move on to our top story before we start winding things down, because this is also interesting stuff. I did a little bit of a deep dive into what's going on with all this oil in Venezuela. All right. You're going to find this next segment that I'm talking about pretty interesting. Now, as far as the CIA, we are fully aware that the CIA was involved in and has been from the get-go in Venezuela. We found out the CIA, when they had the attack on the docks there, that was all coordinated by the CIA. So what's really happening here is the United States Central Intelligence Agency has been working behind the scenes to establish a permanent U.S. presence on the ground in Venezuela. The agency is discussing the best course of action with the State Department, focusing on what the U.S. footprint inside Venezuela will look like, both in the short and long term. The sources say that Washington will heavily lean on the CIA to initiate that reentry process due to the ongoing political transition as the Department of State plants the flag, but it is actually the CIA is really the influence in the days following the capture of Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. And so everybody's kind of asking, so what is this long-term deal? Well, they're selling Venezuela's state-run oil reserves. It's going to be in a $2 billion deal. So that's a lot of money, folks. It's going to be netting millions of dollars of profits and promoting concerns from lawmakers and industry officials inside, basically the Democrats. They're starting to ask, isn't this really corruption? And, of course, as you're well aware, the Trump administration accused Maduro of heading a vast narco-trafficking network as it zeroed in on Venezuela this past fall with a massive deployment of military assets and deadly strikes on the boats off the country's coast. Now that the South American leader and his wife are jailed pending a federal trial happening, Trump has said that his administration will control Venezuela's oil reserve, which is the largest in the world. Trump has since unveiled a sweeping $2 billion deal to sell oil from Venezuela's reserves, which are controlled by a state-run company and have been off limits for years to all American companies but Chevron. So, hey, let's talk Chevron. And he's done that. Venezuela oil stockpiles are backed up by the Trump administration's blockade of oil tankers and years of United States sanctions. Trump aims to get Venezuela's oil flowing to American companies and says the United States will control the proceeds from those sales. This is where people are asking about corruption, because he's put all of this money and the profits thereof into offshore accounts where we, the American people, have no idea how much it is or what he's doing with it. He says he's going to be, as he sees fit, putting that money back into the United States and to the people of Venezuela. Yeah. So anyway, and the oil is already flowing in Houston, Texas. As Trump admitted to himself, he literally bragged that the Venezuelans people, don't have any oil. We take the oil, he said. It's our oil. Offshore accounts, we don't know how much money's there. We don't know what he's doing with it. And nobody has seen a dime of that oil since the United States has taken over. Again, the Trump family is involved with all this. Is it corruption? I don't know. Congress, is it corruption? Are you going to find out if it is or isn't? I know you're powerless, especially the Democrats, because they control the Senate and they control the House. Maybe by midterms, if things change, we can open up some investigations. We don't. So, yeah, what's going to happen? And some more about what's going on with the Trump news. And this has to deal with social media as I start to wind down this podcast. Is the mass censorship that has been seen recently with TikTok, or is it really mass censorship, or is there just something that's currently going on there that we just don't know about? All right. So anyway, TikTok has denied claims that its new U.S. operations are heavily controlling what users post after thousands reported glitches with the video streaming platform. In a response, TikTok United States division has said that an earlier statement pointed it was to technical issues. That's really what it was, being the reason that problem since it became a separate American entity last week. We've been making significant progress in recovering our U.S. infrastructure with our U.S. data center partner, the spokesperson said for TikTok. However, the U.S. user experience may still have some technical issues as we make the transformation, including when posting new content. They also pushed back on users' claims that they were not able to use the name Epstein on TikTok. But here's the deal that you've got to kind of understand about TikTok. Now that all the data has been moved, and I use TikTok myself, has been moved to the United States, people have been seeing humongous suppressions on certain videos that deal with certain topics that's not favorable to the Trump administration. Their views have dropped from like hundreds to maybe thousands to like 25, 24, some not at all, some aren't making it to for-your page. So, and of course they're all saying, well, you know, we're getting there. You'll be able to do that. It's just taking some time for transition. I call BS on that. Now, in accordance with a 2024 law, the U.S.-based company now owns 80% of TikTok's U.S. arm and operate the popular video sharing network domestically. The Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, which passed in 2024, called for banning TikTok in the United States unless its Chinese owners gave up control of TikTok's U.S. asset to the U.S. owners. Okay, that transition has now happened. Now, according to several press reports, the investors interested in purchasing TikTok's U.S. operations includes Oracle, a tech company which is controlled by billionaire Trump supporter Larry Ellison. This guy. All right. The Murdoch-owned Fox Corporation private equity firm Silver Lake and MGX, a Trump-allied crypto investment firm based in the United Arab Emirates. Now, according to other reports, the board for the new TikTok U.S. consortium could include a member of the single biggest private investor in the Friends of the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, and a major Republican donor. He has referred to the state of Israel as his own, this guy has. He and his son. Now, this is what also becomes interesting here. Let's talk about his son for a moment. Yep. David Ellison own and control a head-spinning galaxy of news, television, and Hollywood media companies, mainly through the recent Paramount Skydance Corporation takeover. You've been hearing a lot of complaints about how CBS is all of a sudden has become almost as conservative, if not more conservative, than Fox News. It's because of this guy, all right? It is because of Trump's controlled need of the media. It is because Trump's personally appointed FCC director has been telling Skydance and CBS, which is owned by Paramount, that you guys, we are going to tell you how you're going to do interviews. We're going to tell you who you're going to interview. And anybody that's going to be giving out anti-Trump news, you need to get rid of them or we're going to shut you down. Okay? So, and that's sad that we have become a state-controlled media, at least as far as CBS is concerned. And ABC's not too far behind, folks. But anyway, so this guy here, David Ellison, he of course, he songs and dances to the tune of Donald Trump as well. So Ellison has just gave Free Press founder Barry West, also a pro-Zionist activist, control of a newly acquired CBS. Did you hear that? David Ellison gave Barry Weiss, a pro-Zionist activist, control of newly acquired CBS. So Israel's basically going to start owning our media as well. So Ellison, the elder son, is a major stakeholder in X and Telsa. It is not clear yet that the other pro-Israel figures, including Oracle Vice Executive Chair and former CEO Safra Katz, who traveled to Israel on behalf of the company several times in the last 2 years to ensure its fidelity to Israel's cause. Fox News mogul Rupert Murdoch, who once said Israel is alone on the front line of Western democratic civilization, or Republican mega donor Jeff Yazd, who has funding ties to IDF and AIPAC, are included in the roster of investors as reported earlier. Now, let's dissect this just a little bit. If you go back to one of my earliest Right Have Less podcasts, I did a complete story about IAPAC. There are both Republicans as well as Democrats who have had their pockets filled with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from AIPAC, which is Israel. All right. No matter how you think or stand about Israel or what the hell they're doing to the people of Palestine, not all, again, the Palestinian people have suffered so much, and not all the Palestinian people are members of the right group, Geez, give me a break. When you see little children and women, I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, going back, IPAC has lined the pockets of these people. So again, because of that, and the way TikTok has been set up for the U.S. domestically, Israel has now got their fingerprints into your social media. All right. So because of all this, and so they can say all they want, the algorithms are going to change, and they're going to start looking at those hashtags a lot more closely. So, don't fool yourself. People, please get your head out of the sand. Use critical thinking skills. That's all I ask. Use your critical thinking skills. It's not that hard. Don't go on a bandwagon and because somebody else says jump, you say how high, or Bob says take a crap in the street, I guess I better too, because it's a cool thing to do. Use your head, folks. That's all I'm asking. My last story here before I wrap this up. Now, Trump says housing prices should stay high so the wealthy can stay wealthy and those who don't work hard can't get a home, or shouldn't get a home too. Watch this if you think I'm full of crap on that statement.
Existing housing, people that own their homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home. We're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down. But I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. They feel like that they're wealthy people. And I want them to understand it. There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for people that own their homes. And they can be assured that's what's going to happen.
So, did you hear that? That's what he said. He doesn't want you, the first-time home buyer, you young people out there, unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, you don't deserve a frickin' house. The wealthy, they need to keep their house and make millions more on it. Keep that house value up. The wealthy need to stay wealthy or get wealthier. And if you want to have a house, you better get a job and work hard at it until you can put away about $150,000, and then maybe you can be considered a house. There shouldn't be any Fannie Mae's. There shouldn't be any FHA's. There shouldn't be anything like that. Get out there and work your tail off, according to Donald Trump, to get your first home. You don't deserve to have one handed to you. People like Jimmy Carter, who created a program to where people could help build their first house. That is stupid, man. They shouldn't have done that. I cannot believe those words came out of that man's mouth. I really can't. But anyway, there is your edition of The Right Has Left. That was a lot of stuff to unpack there. I know I went pretty fast and did a lot of talking. Go back and watch this podcast again because, folks, there was a lot of news this past week, and there'll probably be a lot of news next week. But be careful out there. Try to stay warm. This Arctic air mass that's coming down, even clear down here to Florida. It is cold, folks, even for us folks here in Florida, so stay warm. All right, until next week, please be careful out there, and you try to have a good week. Take care.